Hello. Thank you for coming to day 2 of our Affaircare's little Love Kindlers. We're going over each one of the Love Kindlers this week, and then next week we'll go over the Love Extinguishers, and the week after that we'll go over the 7 steps to ending an affair, and then the week after that, the final week of September, we'll be going over the 7 steps to reconcile your marriage after an affair has been discovered. So, yesterday we went over Love Kindler number 1, which is emotional commitment. And today I wanted to go over with everyone Love Kindler number 2, which is spiritual commitment. But just a brief recap first before we start there. Here at Affaircare, we do believe that love is a decision and it's not a feeling. These days, in the movies and everything, people act like when you meet someone and you're really physically attracted to them and they make you have butterflies in the stomach and you think about them all the time, like that's love. And no, that is infatuation, and it could possibly be lust, but it's not love. Love is a decision to treat someone in a loving way, day in and day out. Treating someone in a way that is loving and kind and gentle to them. Also, love is an initiated action. It's not sitting around batting your eyes. No. Love is, you may think well of the person, but you initiate some sort of action that indicates to them that you love them and you care about them. So to understand what love kindlers and love extinguishers and all that is, again, just a brief recap. We think of love like a campfire. There's the little stones that go around the campfire. That would be the vows. They protect the fire. They hold, here's the bounds within which you have this fire. Then there's actions which will, take away from the fire. They're going to start putting it out. That's an extinguisher. It might be like an action that will, it's one little cup full. It doesn't really put the water out, but it kind of dampens it a little. And then some extinguishers be like a big old bucket, and that's an affair. It's a big bucket. It pretty much puts out the fire gigantically right away. So you kind of get that's actions that will put out the love. This week we're talking about love kindlers, and kindlers are actions which build the love. They build that fire of love. And it's funny that people speak about passion like it's a fiery hot passion, because that's what love is. It's a fire that is building and burning. And some fires blaze and go crazy. And then as a blaze goes for a while, if it's not tended, it starts to go out. Now, sometimes if it's a blaze, even if you just add a little to it, it will get to a point where it's sort of an ember, and that's very, very hot. But I'm just saying, you need to keep building your fire to keep it burning. When people first meet, the reason it feels so very natural to fall in love, and it seems like, oh, we just fell in love, it was so easy, is because when you first meet, there are so many kindlers being, given out to each other, and there's no extinguishers at all. You go on your date, you look good, you go have fun, you want to be with each other. These are all things that kindle love, and so it feels very natural. And then there's no extinguishers yet. Once you get married, the very first extinguishers are that first year of marriage. Oh boy, he squeezes the toothpaste in the middle, or she doesn't manage the money real well. Little things like that sort of start to bug you a little. Those sometimes can be like a bucket that has a hole in it. At first you think, well, it's just a little drop here and there, but eventually a whole bucket falls out on the fire. So these things, you can see now how love kind of builds. You have to do these love kindlers to keep your fire going in your marriage, and you have to keep at it all the time. You don't, you keep building the fire the entire length of your marriage. That's part of your vows, that you will spend your lifetime learning how to love the person. So yesterday we were talking about emotional commitment, which is Kindler number 1. And today we will be discussing Kindler number 2. This one is spiritual commitment. A spiritual commitment, to just give it like a definition, if you will, is committing to your spouse's spiritual growth. Now, I'll have to tell you, I had a little trouble with this one because, spiritual commitment, spiritual growth, it sounds kind of nebulous. What do I mean by that? So, I want to tell you what I mean. We, at Affaircare, we are nouthetic coaches, which means that's a Greek word. It means biblical. So we do offer Christian advice. That is our spiritual value is Christianity, and we specifically focus on the Bible and doing biblical advice versus, I guess, basically like our opinion or our interpretation. We try our best to take it straight from the Bible. So in this instance, when I say spiritual commitment, what I mean is that when a couple marries, the big sort of overarching commitment, it is a commitment to your spouse. And this particular Kindler is a commitment to your spouse's spiritual growth. So to be very specific, this means I am committing to my dear hubby's spiritual growth. And it's my job, my commitment, to do everything I can to help him grow spiritually and to support that growth. I'm not there to tell him what to believe. I'm not there to try to manage his spiritual growth. So, for example, I'm not kicking his butt to get him to church every Sunday. That's his job. If he wants to go, he's got to get himself up. He's got to get himself dressed. I'm not telling him what to do or what to believe. But what I do is I provide an environment where he can grow spiritually and where it's supportive of him to grow spiritually. In our marriage, I'll give you a great example. I am horrible with time. I have very big trouble keeping track of time, and so if I might go to bed and completely forget to set the alarm clock. And one of the things my dear hubby does to help with my spiritual growth is hey, did you set the alarm clock so we can go to church tomorrow? That's just setting the environment. He doesn't make me do it, but that is concern toward my spiritual growth. So there you go. You got a good example. If you neglect this Kindler, or if you make it where your spouse is not able to grow, then what you're doing is you're neglecting your spouse's spiritual welfare. And so this particular commitment is very important. Specifically, there are some things that I would say are, from a Christian point of view, again, are just necessities for spiritual growth. So the first thing I would say is that you need to be a Christian. I think in the United States, we tend to think of ourselves as a Christian nation, maybe because we don't happen to be like a Jewish nation or a Muslim nation or a Buddhist nation. If you're born here, a lot of times you think you're a Christian. Or if you go to some sort of a church, you think you're a Christian. But that is not what being a Christian is at all. First, we need to have an understanding and an agreement within ourselves, I guess you could say, that we are dead in trespasses and sins. Romans 3:23 will tell us that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. God is completely holy and completely just. And since we are not holy and we are not just, that's sin. And that sin keeps us from Him, so that we are without hope. Ephesians 2:12 expresses that lack of hope because we're in our sinful condition. any hope that we would have to come from outside of us. We can't do anything about our sinful condition. Again, let's Ephesians 2, Ephesians 2, 8 and 9 tells us that, by grace are you saved through faith. It is not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. So this is not what I like to do. I like to think of it like a big ocean, and there are people, that are they drowned. They're dead. If you threw a life jacket at a dead person, they are unable to grab it. Even though you sent them life jacket, they can't grab it because they're dead. So this is the same kind of thing. We are dead. We cannot do anything about it. So praise God, though, there is hope. God did provide us a way. In Acts 4:12, he tells us that God decided that he needed to have the just price paid, and he did send Christ to the world for us, and he came specifically for us, and he died for our sins. And by him dying on the cross for us, this breathed life back into us. 1 Peter 2:24 tells us exactly that Christ died for us. So, if you believe this, if you agree, if you understand what I'm talking about, you can email me at affaircare@gmail.com or leave a comment here on YouTube or on the blog if you're reading there. And just let us know that the first thing you need to really provide for your spouse's spiritual welfare is to be a Christian. And the ideal thing is to be both of you to be Christians. So if that is not the case, and sometimes it's not, then I would again, turn to the Bible where Paul told us if you're living with a non-Christian and they are pleased to stay with you, continue to show God's love by the way that you treat them, and maybe they will be persuaded and will hear, turn to Christianity. On the other hand, if your non-Christian spouse wants to go and they've had enough of you telling them about being a Christian, then Paul tells us we can let them go and live in peace. I would say ideally, the ideal situation is if you're both a Christian, and if that is the case, if that's where you're at, then there are some things that you need to do for your spouse's spiritual welfare. We were talking about providing an environment where they can grow spiritually. That would be providing an environment in your home with them together as a couple, united, an environment of prayer where they can pray, Bible study, and worship. If you're not giving them the chance, like some people will pray together as a couple, and some pray independently, like personal prayers. I personally encourage both, frankly. Same for Bible study. Some people will study on their own. Some study as a couple. Honestly, I say study every minute you can, because every time you study the Bible, you're going to be learning about God. So, go there. And like worship. I think the ideal situation is to attend worship together as a couple. But if you can't, for whatever reason, at least provide the opportunity for your spouse to go ahead and worship. Worship with your spouse. Worship Sunday, absolutely, but worship on other days as well. So that's one thing to provide for your spouse's spiritual welfare. Also, we know from 2 Timothy 3:16 that the scripture is good for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness. So as you're studying the Bible, one of the things that you can do with each other is to teach each other. Teach each other the spiritual lessons that you've learned. Same for rebuking. If you know that your spouse is living in sin or doing something sinful, it's not your job to punish them for the sin that they've done, but it is reasonable for you to be prudent and be wise and to point out their sin and to ask them to stop doing it. That would involve correcting as well. So, and then the training in righteousness. Well, where else are you going to learn how to be a righteous person, how to live a moral life, what the values, God's values are, if you're not in the Bible studying it? So we need to be in the Bible studying as much as you can. And then a couple other things that I did want to just point out that the spiritual commitment did involve, and that is offering your spouse forgiveness. This is a thing that we frequently are asked about, especially as revolves around an affair, because the disloyal spouse was lying and broke trust and everything. How can you forgive them for that? Well, God doesn't say, oh, you get to keep a hold of it and you can punish them. That's cool with me. You go with that. It says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. So we are told to forgive. And furthermore, he tells us to love our enemies. Well, if we have to love our enemies, I would think we would love our spouses. So we have an obligation to forgive them. And when we don't, we are the ones who are sinning. So that's part of those spiritual commitment, is to forgive your spouse. Now, I understand an affair is big, and especially when the spouse is not repentant, it's very difficult to forgive. But that's okay. Take steps toward it, and then how might I do it? Then the next step. Okay, what's the first thing I could do that would get me toward forgiving them? Keep on going. It may take you a little while to get there, and I understand that, but I'm going to encourage you now to do it. It's the right thing to do. Second thing is living a personal life that is transparent and moral. Transparency, an easy way to envision that, you're being transparent, you're being see-through. So that means your spouse can see through all those little masks and images and walls that you put up. They get to see through and see the real you behind that image. If they're not seeing the real you, then you're lying to them. So be transparent and let them see what you are, what you think, what you feel, what you do, who you're doing it with, where you're going, everything. That's living an honest life. And also with that is living a moral life. And this is, living by the moral code of, look at the Ten Commandments. Right there, that will keep most of us busy for the rest of our lives, right? Honor your father and mother. Don't kill. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Right there, most of us are kind of done. So this is the kind of fruit that we want to have bearing fruit in our lives, of living a life that's honoring to God, and that's what he's told us is honoring to him. Living a life that is honoring our parents. Living a life that does not involve killing. Living a life that does not involve adultery. And here our site is about adultery. So when you are thinking about Kindler number 2, spiritual commitment, don't look to your spouse and, oh, they're not providing for my spiritual life. No, look at yourself and say, where do I need to step up to the plate? Am I a Christian? If you're not, you need to be a Christian. Am I providing an environment for my spouse to grow spiritually? Am I forgiving my spouse? Am I living a transparent, moral life? In other words, don't blame your spouse. Work on yourself first. But as a married person, your job, your commitment is to be the kind of person where your spouse is growing and blossoming and blooming spiritually. So, all right, that is spiritual commitment. Tomorrow we'll be going over one that's, I'm sure, going to just be fun, frankly. It's a physical commitment, it's Kindler number 3. And here in the United States, so many people are so focused on the exterior, the physical, how you look, your weight, your age, all that stuff. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. It'll be a lot of fun, and look forward to talking to you then. So thanks so much, and hope you have a great night.